Episode number 301. This is one of our Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise along this series. You know, we talk about money all the time, but today I wanted to talk about fitness. And I had the good fortune to meet Dan Hollingsworth. We had him as a guest on the show. It's been a couple of years now, I think, since the last time. Let me tell you a little bit about Dan. Dan Hollingsworth is the owner of Kitsap CrossFit in Paulsboro, Washington. He holds a master's degree in physical therapy and a bachelor's degree in exercise science. In addition to owning and operating his gym, he also is a member of the CrossFit seminar staff and travels the world teaching CrossFit methodology to new trainers. He's passionate about helping people change their lives through fitness. Outside of CrossFit, he enjoys running, cycling, and triathlons, as well as traveling with his wife, Amy, and their two daughters, Piper and Sophie. Dan, welcome back to Sound Retirement Radio.
Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm so excited. You know, it's a small world, and we have a lot of common friends. Many of my friends train with you there at CrossFit.
Yes.
But like I was saying, one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because we focus so much on investments and planning and insurance and the financial side of people's well-being. But the reality is, if you don't have relationships and if you don't have your health, none of the money stuff really matters.
Right.
You know, I wanted to have a focus this year on being healthy, living healthy. And
absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to be healthy enough to enjoy that retirement nest egg that you've built, right? Because the unfortunate reality is that a lot of people get to that retirement age and then they're too sick to enjoy what they've worked so hard for their entire life, and they spend their entire investment trying to maintain their health, and that's unfortunate. That's not the way it's supposed to work.
Isn't that a lousy way to spend money, is just to kind of try to get back where you were. So, So this is going to be a good one. Now, I at one point I had hired you as my running coach, and so let's talk a little, because I know a lot of the people that reach out to us, they're runners also. They like to listen to podcasts while they run, and you had taught me this method of running that really intrigued me. This whole idea of where my center is and how I'm coming down on my knees, and just the form overall. It was the first time I had ever hired somebody to train me with my running, and I just found it really fascinating. You know, when you have somebody else looking at, I heard somebody say recently that when you're inside the jar, it's hard to see the label.
Yes.
So it's when you have somebody looking at you from the outside perspective, it just helps you see things different. So let's start off there, just because I like running so much, and this is something you train people on all over the world.
Right. Yeah. You know, in this idea of running efficiently or running technique, it's strangely controversial. Some folks like to say that running is just natural. It's something that we've always done as long as we've been on 2 feet. And I don't disagree with that. And from there, they make the leap that, well, it's a natural thing, and if you do enough of it, you'll do it well. But I would argue that many of the things that we do in life are natural, like picking something up off the ground, which, you know, in the weightlifting world, we call that a deadlift. And if someone who had never done deadlifting before said, I wanted to try doing that, most smart people would say, well, you should hire someone to show you how to do it, so you make sure you do it right and you don't get hurt. If someone says, I want to start running, they're like, okay, well, just start running. Why wouldn't you, if you need a coach to help you do deadlifting properly or any other natural human activity, why wouldn't you need a coach to help you run properly, right? To assess what's going on and make sure that you're doing it with proper technique and form so you don't get hurt. So
you can do it as long as possible. Yeah, one of the things absolutely. I do see, I mean, I just was talking to a lady recently, and she was sharing that she's going in for surgery on her spine, and part of it, she's starting to feel some wear and tear on her hips and her spine as a result of all this. She loves running; she's out there a lot, so. There are consequences. There's a price to pay for this activity that so many of us enjoy, and
I would say there's a consequence, a price to pay if it's not done well. Right? Meaning, and that could be lots of different ways. That could be from a technique perspective. Very often it's from a volume perspective and just doing too much, especially someone who hadn't been exercising for a long time. They discover running, they find that there's health benefits and there's mental benefits. And then all of a sudden they're doing too much of it. And then they're trying to keep up with their friends and neighbors. So they're signing up for this race and signing up for that race when they really haven't built up a good base to support what they want to do. And so then it almost becomes obsessive, and that's when it becomes problematic.
So let's talk about that balance. What is, because I have to tell you, I enjoy running so much that I don't I don't, I'm not intentional about rest days. I'm not intentional
Right.
about down days. Cause I mean, for me to wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, walk outside and be under the stars and the moon, I just want to go for it,
Yeah.
and I like it so much that I don't not want to run. So
Right.
it's hard for me to take rest days. What is the right mix there between rest days and active days?
Well, there's no hard and fast answer. I can't say definitively that every single person needs to run this many days and rest this many days. It depends on, again, how much are you running? How many miles are you running, or how much time are you spending running per day when you're running? What's the intensity level of your running? Are you running, long, kind of slow hours, or are you running short, high intensity things? So all of those things vary, and all those things will dictate how much recovery you need. But the fact of the matter is, absolutely, recovery is required, the real health and fitness benefits actually come during recovery. You don't get better at, how do I say this? You don't get better at running while you're actually running. So the physiological changes that occur happen while you're resting. They really happen while you're sleeping. So your body releases hormones that repair all the quote unquote damage that you do while you're doing exercise. While you're sleeping, your body releases hormones that repairs that. But the same thing is while you're resting. If you're in this constant state of just breakdown, your body doesn't have an opportunity to repair itself, and then therefore becomes stronger. So the recovery aspect is really, really important. Now, if you're saying, I just like being out there all the time, I really like being out there, well, that's great. But how about one day you just go for a walk? It's less stressful, right? And so you're still getting out there. You're still getting that opportunity to clear your mind and enjoy the stars when it's not cloudy in the morning. Which this time of year is not that often. But you know what I mean? Like, you still have that opportunity to get out there and breathe some fresh air, let your mind wander, or if you're listening to a podcast, whatever it is, you can still have that opportunity to do it without adding the insult of running day after day after day after day. And it's just also this idea of doing the same thing over and over again. So if, maybe one day you got out there and did a bike ride instead of a run, you might find that allows you to do something every single day, but not wearing away at the same joints, same muscle groups in the same way. So,
well, good. My wife will be glad you said that, because I've been looking for an excuse to buy a nice mountain bike.
Oh, there you go.
No, I wanted to, I do want to ask you about CrossFit and strength training, but before we get into that, I just had one other question. So I was reading a book. I think a guy had told me about this method of running where you're training by keeping your heart rate below a certain number of beats as you're running.
Right.
And so I went out, I bought this polar heart rate monitor, and I was amazed at how hard it is to keep my heart rate below a certain level. And so I just wanted to ask you your thoughts about this idea of trying to run and maintain a really low heart rate for, and I guess the guys that were primarily doing this are guys that are doing these extreme ultra marathons. And
I mean, I was just listening to a podcast interviewing Dr. Phil Maffetone this morning, and that might be who you're referring to.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's built quite a practice on this idea of sort of low heart rate training methodology, and certainly has, a long list of folks that have been successful using his training methodology. Conversely, there are folks who say, you train hard, run hard in training so you can run hard in a race or whatever. There's benefits to both. I don't think it's, and even he was saying this morning, there's not one methodology that's works for every single person. My challenge with that is, as you mentioned, you went out with your heart rate monitor and you're supposed to say, do you remember what your target heart rate was?
I think I had to stay below 140 or 135.
Yeah,
and for me to do that, I had to walk.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I couldn't run
Absolutely.
and keep my heart rate that low.
Especially where we live. I mean, there's no flat place to run where we live.
Right.
And so all it takes is just the slightest incline for your heart rate to spike over where you're supposed to be. And then all of a sudden the enjoyment of running is gone, because now you're worried about the beeping on your heart rate monitor telling you, hey, you need to slow down. Okay. So is there some benefit to maybe, tempering back on the intensity sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But I always, I struggle to recommend this idea of living and dying by a heart rate monitor, because there's lots of things that affect your heart rate as well. Like, if you didn't sleep well the night before, if you had, you checked your email just before you went for a run, you got, an alarming email or, something like that. all of a sudden you're in a heightened state and your heart rate's going to be higher, right? You could be out for a run and all of a sudden a dog starts barking and it scares you and your heart rate's going to spike.